Once upon a time, in the heart of a sun-drenched forest lived a duck. This was no ordinary duck. Oh no. His name was Ferdinand, and he had a heart filled with adventure, and a spirit as wild as the wind. Now, as luck would have it, or maybe it was fate, Ferdinand wasn't the only one braving the twilight. They just stared at each other, a duck and a snake, two very different creatures with two very different ways of looking at the world. I'd best be getting home before my family start worrying. Yeah, me too, Slinky said, realizing it was getting dark. It's been nice meeting you, Ferdinand. Maybe we could do this again sometime, he suggested hopefully. But Slinky wasn't so grateful. That was terrifying, he hissed, his eyes wide with fear. I never want to see that cat again. Looking up, they saw the same bulky cat from the night before, staring down at them with those same glowing yellow eyes. Yikes, Ferdinand squeaked, diving for cover. But the cat just sat there, regarding them with an air of lazy amusement. Hello, the cat said in a deep, resonant voice. Might I come in for some tea? Before either Ferdinand or Slinky could reply, the cat sauntered into the house, his tail held high like a furry flag. Me neither, Ferdinand agreed, shivering despite the warm night. So imagine the surprise of the ducks when the cat, whose name was Chester, settled down in a patch of sunlight and refused to leave. Ferdinand and Slinky tried to convince him to go away, but Chester was adamant. Not by the whiskers on my chinny chin, he said. Am I going to leave without some tea and a chat? You ducks sure do have some nerve. Despite their initial hesitation, Ferdinand and Slinky soon warmed up to Chester's easy charm. As the afternoon wore on, they shared stories and laughter, forging an unlikely bond between three very different friends. But what if it finds us here? Slinky asked, his eyes darting around the duck's cozy nest. He described the bustling city streets, the towering skyscrapers, and the endless supply of cozy nooks to nap in. Ferdinand and Slinky listened with wide-eyed wonder, their imaginations soaring with Chester's every tale. Soon, the thought of the world beyond the forest seemed less daunting and more exciting than ever before. Ferdinand looked at Slinky and Chester, his heart filled with gratitude. He realized that true friendship could blossom in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest adventures are best shared with the ones you love. Ferdinand's mother, who had been listening quietly, spoke up in a soothing voice. Don't worry, Slinky. My son and his friend are safe here. No wildcat could get past me. Slinky relaxed a little, but he couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. I'd like that, Ferdinand replied, giving Slinky a friendly nod. And with that, they said their goodbyes and headed in the directions of their homes. As Ferdinand snuggled down in his cozy nest with his family, he couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment. He might not have ventured as far as he'd hoped, but he'd made a new friend, and that was an adventure in itself. Then Ferdinand, being the polite fellow he was, decided to break the silence. He, too, was happy with their first adventure together. From that day on, Ferdinand and Slinky became the best of friends. They met every evening at the edge of the forest, and together they explored the world, facing their fears and discovering the beauty of the great outdoors. One evening, as they were sharing a juicy worm, Ferdinand turned to Slinky with a serious expression. You know, Slinky, I want to show you something really cool. What is it? Some hidden treasure? Slinky asked with a twinkle in his eye. Better than that, Ferdinand said with a mischievous grin. Close your eyes and hold out your hand. Slinky did as he was told, and Ferdinand carefully placed something in his palm. It was a small, smooth stone. Nothing particularly special at first glance. What's so special about this rock? Slinky asked, a little confused. If you look closely, Ferdinand said excitedly, it looks like a boat. Don't you see? If we turn it this way, it becomes a sailboat. And if we turn it the other way, it turns into a bird. It's magic, Ferdinand exclaimed. "Well, hello there," he said, trying to sound casual. "Didn't expect to meet anyone out here." "Oh, Ferdinand, you silly goose. That's not magic. It's just a rock." "Oh, come on, Slinky. Be a bit more imaginative," Ferdinand said with a pout. "There's magic all around us if only we open our eyes to see it." Just then, a twig snapped behind them, and the two friends whirled around to find a pair of glowing yellow eyes staring at them in the darkness. "Yikes," Ferdinand squeaked, hiding behind Slinky. "What was that?" Slinky hissed, his body coiling like a tight spring. "I don't know," he whispered back, his voice tight with fear. The creature took a step forward, and they could make out the shape of a large, bulky cat. "A cat," Ferdinand breathed, his voice shaking. "What should we do?" Before Slinky could reply, the cat leaped forward, its paws hitting the ground like thunderclaps. "Run," Slinky shouted, and the two friends didn't stop running until they reached the safety of Ferdinand's home. Slinky nodded, his forked tongue flickering in and out. "Me neither." "Heading out of the forest, are you?" Ferdinand asked, trying not to sound too eager. "Sure I am," Slinky replied with a hint of a smile in his voice. "And you?" "Same here," Ferdinand said, puffing out his chest a bit. "I'm Ferdinand and you are?" "Slinky," the snake replied. "Well, it's nice to meet you, Slinky," Ferdinand said. And so began an unlikely friendship between a duck and a snake. They talked for hours, sharing their hopes, dreams, and fears as they made their way through the darkening woods. Ferdinand told Slinky about his longing to see the world beyond the trees, and Slinky shared his desire to explore the vast river that flowed nearby. In the undergrowth ahead of him, a sleek black snake slithered out, his scales gleaming like polished onyx in the fading light. The snake was called Slinky, and he was as curious about the world beyond the forest as Ferdinand. Only Slinky wasn't afraid. Oh no, he was as brave as a lion, or at least he wanted to be. Ferdinand dreamed of exploring the world beyond the forest, a world he'd only seen in his wildest dreams. But there was one tiny problem. Ferdinand was terribly, terribly afraid of the big, scary outside world. You know, with all its loud noises and fast-moving cars and things like that. All the other animals in the forest thought this was just a little bit silly. I mean, come on. It wasn't all that bad, but they were also very busy with their own lives and didn't have time to comfort poor little Ferdinand. So our adventurous duck just had to take matters into his own webbed feet. He decided he would venture out of the forest and see the world for himself, even if he was scared green around the beak. As the sun began its slow descent, Ferdinand took a deep breath, flapped his wings, and with a determined quack, he set off toward the setting sun. At first, neither of them said a word. Suddenly, Ferdinand stopped in his tracks. "Oh dear," he exclaimed. "I didn't realize how late it was getting." Meanwhile, Slinky slithered into his den, a wide grin on his face. Slinky stared at the rock, then burst out laughing. Panting and shaken, Ferdinand thanked Slinky for saving him. The next morning, as Ferdinand and Slinky were recounting the previous evening's adventures to a gathering of wide-eyed ducklings, a shadow fell over them. Now, cats are known for being independent creatures, preferring to live on their own terms rather than abide by someone else's rules. Chester stayed for many afternoons, regaling them with tales of his adventures beyond the forest.